Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever looked in the mirror and asked yourself, how did I get here? How did I, someone strong, kind, and full of dreams, end up feeling so empty, so drained, and so unseen? Today, we're diving into a tough truth, one that many of us shy away from what it means when a man uses you. This is not about blame or shame. This is about your power, and how somewhere along the way it might have been taken or worse, handed over. But let me tell you something right now. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the architect of your future. So if you've ever felt used, manipulated, or unappreciated, this moment is for you. Today, we're going to unpack the hard truths, rewrite the story, and step back into the fullness of who you are. Because being used isn't the end of the story, it's the wake-up call to a new beginning. Let's go. Recognizing your worth is the cornerstone of every healthy relationship, whether it's with others or with yourself. It's about understanding on a deep and unshakable level that your value is not determined by external circumstances or the validation of others. Too often, we tie our self-worth to things outside of ourselves, how much we're loved, how much we accomplish, or how much we give. But the truth is, your worth is intrinsic. It was there the day you were born, and it will remain until your last breath. Recognizing it means reclaiming that truth and letting it guide how you live, love, and show up in the world. To begin recognizing your worth, you must first let go of the stories you've been told or have told yourself. Maybe someone in your past made you feel small intentionally or unintentionally. Maybe you were conditioned to believe that love is earned through sacrifice, that your voice isn't important, or that your needs should always come second. These narratives become deeply embedded, shaping how we view ourselves and how we allow others to treat us. Recognizing your worth means challenging those narratives. It means standing up and saying, I am more than what they told me. I am enough as I am. It's not always easy, though. We live in a world that constantly measures us against impossible standards. Social media bombards us with images of perfection, leaving us to wonder if we're doing enough, achieving enough, or if we're attractive enough. Society often tells us that our value is inextricably linked to our relationships, whether we have a partner, whether we're pleasing them, or whether we're fulfilling their expectations. But here's the reality: your worth is not something you earn, it's something you earn. It exists independently of your relationship status, your accomplishments, or the opinions of others. To truly recognize your worth, you have to start looking inward. Ask yourself, who am I without the roles I play? Without the labels of being someone's partner, parent, or friend, who am I? Strip away the externals and sit with yourself. This can be uncomfortable because it forces you to confront not only your strengths, but also your fears, insecurities, and wounds. But in doing so, you'll discover something profound: your essence, your authentic self. That is where your worth lies, not in the masks you wear or the expectations you meet, but in the simple fact that you exist. Another critical step in recognizing your worth is learning to set boundaries. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They're gates that protect your peace and your sense of self. When you recognize your worth, you stop saying yes to things that deplete you just to avoid conflict or gain approval. You stop tolerating behavior that disrespects you, no matter how charming or apologetic the other person may be. Boundaries are an act of self-love, a way of saying, I know what I deserve and I won't accept less. When you start to value yourself, you also stop seeking validation in unhealthy ways. You no longer feel the need to overextend yourself just to feel appreciated. You stop equating love with suffering or effort. Instead, you understand that real love is built on mutual respect and reciprocity. It doesn't require you to lose parts of yourself. It doesn't demand that you shrink to make someone else feel bigger. Recognizing your worth helps you see that love in its truest form, enhances who you are. It doesn't diminish you. The journey to recognizing your worth isn't linear, and it isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice, a commitment to yourself. Some days you'll feel empowered and unstoppable. Other days, doubt might creep in, and that's okay. What matters is that you keep coming back to the truth: you are enough. You are worthy of love, respect, and happiness, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. It's important to surround yourself with people who affirm this truth. When you recognize your worth, you naturally gravitate toward relationships that reflect it. You stop chasing after those who take you for granted and start appreciating those who value you for who you are. This doesn't mean you'll never encounter challenges or conflicts in relationships, but it does mean that you'll approach them from a place of strength rather than fear. Lastly, recognizing your worth is about honoring your journey. It's about embracing all the parts of you, the successes and the failures, the joys and the struggles. It's about seeing your life as a tapestry, each thread adding to its beauty and depth. You are not defined by any single moment or mistake. You are a work in progress, and that is enough. When you fully embrace your worth, everything changes. The way you see yourself, the way you allow others to treat you, and the way you show up in the world, all of it shifts. Recognizing your worth is not just an act of self-love, it's an act of liberation. It frees you to live authentically, to love deeply, and to demand the respect you deserve. And once you step into that power, there is no going back. Identifying exploitation is one of the most critical steps in reclaiming your power and protecting your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. It requires you to take a step back, examine the dynamics of your relationships, and have the courage to confront the uncomfortable truths that may lie beneath the surface. Exploitation is insidious. It rarely announces itself outright, often cloaked in charm, affection, or even promises of love. Yet its effects can leave you feeling drained, used, and disconnected from your sense of self. Recognizing when someone is exploiting you is essential, not as a means to place blame, but as a way to set yourself free and create healthier, more fulfilling connections. Exploitation often begins subtly. It might start with small requests, things that seem reasonable at first. Maybe someone consistently asks for your help, your time, or your resources, and you oblige because you care. You might even feel good about being there for them, but over time, the dynamic shifts. Instead of appreciation or reciprocity, there's an expectation. Your kindness becomes a resource they depend on, and instead of a mutual give and take, you find yourself giving far more than you receive. This pattern can go unnoticed for a long time, especially if the person exploiting you is skilled at masking their intentions. They might flatter you, make you feel needed, or even guilt you into continuing the cycle. One of the clearest signs of exploitation is a consistent imbalance in the relationship. Healthy relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, are built on reciprocity and respect. When someone is exploiting you, however, they take far more than they give. This could manifest emotionally, where your feelings, needs, and boundaries are disregarded, or materially, where your resources or efforts are disproportionately relied upon. You might start to notice that their needs always take precedence while yours are minimized or ignored altogether. Over time, this imbalance can erode your self-esteem and leave you questioning your own worth. Another hallmark of exploitation is manipulation. People who exploit others are often skilled manipulators, using tactics like guilt, flattery, or even subtle threats to get what they want. They might make you feel like their well-being depends entirely on you, creating a sense of obligation. Or they might convince you that your worth is tied to what you can do for them, making it difficult to say no. Manipulation can be incredibly effective because it preys on your empathy and your desire to be kind and supportive. But the truth is, real love and respect never require manipulation. Exploitation can also show up as a lack of accountability. When someone is using you, they rarely take responsibility for their actions or the consequences of their behavior. Instead, they might deflect blame, make excuses, or turn the focus back on you. For example, if you try to address the imbalance in the relationship, they might accuse you of being selfish or overly sensitive. This gaslighting tactic can leave you doubting your perceptions and make it harder to recognize the exploitation for what it is. It's also important to pay attention to how you feel in the relationship. Exploitation often leaves you feeling depleted, unappreciated, or even resentful. You might start to notice that you're constantly anxious about pleasing the other person or avoiding conflict. You might feel trapped, as though you can't voice your true feelings or needs without risking the relationship. These emotions are red flags. They signal that the relationship is not serving you in a healthy way and that your boundaries are being crossed. Identifying exploitation also requires you to confront your own patterns and vulnerabilities. Often, people who are exploited have a strong desire to please others or avoid conflict. They might struggle with low self-esteem or fear of abandonment, making them more likely to tolerate unhealthy dynamics. This is not to say that being exploited is your fault. It absolutely isn't. But understanding your own tendencies can empower you to break free from the cycle and establish stronger boundaries in the future. It's important to remember that exploitation isn't always malicious. Sometimes the person exploiting you may not even realize they're doing it. They may be acting out of their own unmet needs, insecurities, or learned behaviors. While this doesn't excuse their actions, it can help you approach the situation with compassion and clarity. Recognizing exploitation isn't about demonizing the other person. It's about protecting yourself and ensuring that your relationships are based on mutual respect and care. Once you've identified exploitation, the next step is deciding how to address it. This might involve having an honest conversation, setting firm boundaries, or in some cases, walking away from the relationship entirely. These decisions are never easy, but they are necessary for your well-being. Remember, you have the right to prioritize your needs and protect your energy. You are not obligated to sacrifice yourself for someone else's benefit. Identifying exploitation is an act of courage and self-respect. It's about recognizing that you deserve relationships that uplift and empower you, not ones that drain or diminish you. By becoming aware of the signs and trusting your instincts, you take the first step toward reclaiming your power and creating a life that reflects your true worth. And in doing so, you set a standard not just for how others treat you, but for how you treat yourself. Understanding the root causes of why someone might use or exploit you is essential for breaking the cycle and reclaiming control over your life. When we experience manipulation or exploitation in relationships, it's easy to focus solely on the external behavior, the actions of the person who is mistreating us. While addressing those behaviors is important, true transformation begins when we turn inward and ask, why did I allow this? What within me permitted this dynamic to take hold? These are not questions of blame, but of empowerment. They open the door to self-awareness, growth, and the possibility of healthier connections in the future. At its core, allowing exploitation often stems from a misunderstanding of self-worth. Many people grow up in environments where love and approval are conditional. Maybe you were praised only when you achieved something or felt noticed only when you made sacrifices for others. Over time, you might have internalized the belief that you must earn love or prove your value by what you do rather than who you are. This conditioning can create a deep fear of rejection or abandonment, making it difficult to assert your needs or set boundaries in relationships. Instead, you might overcompensate by giving too much or tolerating behavior that doesn't align with your values. Another root cause is fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of conflict, or fear of losing a relationship can keep us in situations where we are being used. This fear often leads to a mindset of scarcity, the belief that this person or relationship is the best you can have, or worse, all you deserve. When fear drives your decisions, it can cloud your judgment and make you more likely to accept treatment that falls short of what you truly want and need. Understanding this fear is the first step in overcoming it. By acknowledging its presence, you can begin to challenge the false narratives that keep you stuck and start envisioning a life that isn't driven by fear, but by self-love and confidence. Low self-esteem is another common factor. When you don't fully believe in your value, you might settle for less than you deserve because you don't think you deserve better. You might tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or neglect because deep down you've been conditioned to think that's as good as it gets. Low self-esteem can also make it difficult to recognize exploitation when it happens. Instead of seeing the imbalance or manipulation, you might blame yourself for the relationship's problems, thinking if I were better, smarter, or more lovable, things would be different. But the truth is, your worth isn't determined by anyone else's behavior. It's inherent, and recognizing that is key to breaking free from exploitative dynamics. Another root cause can be a lack of boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define what is and isn't acceptable in your relationships. They protect your energy, time, and emotional well-being. If you grew up in an environment where your boundaries weren't respected, where you were told to put others' needs before your own, or where saying no wasn't an option, you might struggle to set boundaries as an adult. Without clear boundaries, it's easy for others to take advantage of your kindness or willingness to help. Understanding where your boundaries are weak or non-existent allows you to start rebuilding them, creating a foundation for healthier relationships moving forward. The patterns of exploitation can also be traced to learned behaviors from past experiences or relationships. If you've been in an exploitative relationship before, it might have set a precedent for how you expect to be treated. Over time, these patterns become familiar, even comfortable, making it difficult to recognize healthier alternatives. Similarly, if you've seen exploitation modeled in relationships around you, perhaps in your parents' dynamic or among close family members, you might unconsciously replicate those patterns, believing they are normal or unavoidable. Empathy, while a beautiful trait, can also play a role in allowing exploitation. If you have a deep capacity for understanding and compassion, you might find yourself excusing someone's harmful behavior because you see their pain, their struggles, or their potential. You might tell yourself they don't mean to hurt me, they're just going through a tough time. While it's important to be empathetic, it's equally important to remember that empathy doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being. Understanding the difference between supporting someone and allowing them to exploit you is a critical part of the healing process. Lastly, societal conditioning can contribute to the root causes of exploitation. Many cultures, particularly for women, emphasize selflessness, caretaking, and putting others' needs before your own. This conditioning can make it feel selfish or wrong to stand up for yourself, assert your needs, or walk away from a toxic relationship. But the truth is, prioritizing your well-being isn't selfish, it's necessary. Breaking free from societal expectations and redefining what it means to be strong, loving, and deserving is a powerful step toward recognizing and addressing exploitation. Understanding the root causes of exploitation isn't about assigning blame, it's about gaining clarity. When you uncover the beliefs, fears, and patterns that have kept you in unhealthy dynamics, you gain the power to change them. You begin to see that being used by someone else isn't just about their behavior, it's also about the beliefs you've held about yourself. And when you change those beliefs, when you start to value yourself, set boundaries, and refuse to let fear dictate your choices, you create a life where exploitation has no place. You step into your worth, and in doing so, you attract the respect, love, and reciprocity you've always deserved. Breaking the cycle of being used or exploited in relationships is a transformative process that requires courage, self-awareness, and intentional action. It's not an overnight shift, but a journey of reclaiming your power, setting boundaries, and redefining how you allow others to treat you. The cycle of exploitation is often reinforced by patterns we've internalized, fears we've carried, and habits we've developed over time. To break free, you must first understand the dynamics at play and then take deliberate steps to create a new path forward, one rooted in respect, self-love, and empowerment. The first step in breaking the cycle is acknowledgement. You cannot change what you refuse to see. This means confronting the uncomfortable truth that you've been allowing someone to take advantage of you. It's important to approach this realization with compassion for yourself. Being used doesn't make you weak or foolish. It means you cared deeply, perhaps too much, and gave too freely to someone who didn't reciprocate. Acknowledgement isn't about blaming yourself. It's about recognizing the reality of the situation so you can take back control of your life. Denial only keeps you trapped, but awareness is the key to freedom. Once you've acknowledged the pattern, the next step is to identify its roots. Ask yourself, why have I allowed this? This is not about judgment, but understanding. Perhaps you stayed in the relationship out of fear of being alone, fear of conflict, or fear of losing someone you love. Maybe you've struggled with low self-esteem and believed, consciously or unconsciously, that this was the best you could have. Or perhaps you've been conditioned to prioritize others' needs over your own, making it difficult to recognize or assert your boundaries. Understanding these underlying factors is crucial because they illuminate the beliefs and fears that need to be addressed for lasting change. Setting boundaries is a pivotal part of breaking the cycle. Boundaries are the limits you establish to protect your emotional, physical, and mental well-being. They communicate what you will and won't tolerate in relationships. For many people, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first, especially if you're not used to advocating for yourself. You might worry about how others will react or fear being seen as selfish. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of self-respect. They create a foundation for healthy relationships by ensuring that your needs, values, and feelings are honored. When you set a boundary, you're not just telling others how to treat you, you're also reminding yourself of your worth. Breaking the cycle also requires you to practice self-awareness in real time. Pay attention to the dynamics in your relationships and notice when old patterns start to resurface. Do you find yourself overgiving, neglecting your own needs, or tolerating disrespect? Are there moments when you feel resentment or exhaustion because the relationship feels one-sided? These feelings are red flags that your boundaries might be slipping or that you're falling back into familiar patterns. Self-awareness allows you to course correct before the cycle takes hold again. Another essential element of breaking the cycle is learning to say no. For many people, especially those who are empathetic or conflict avoidant, saying no feels difficult or even impossible. But every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values or needs, you're saying no to yourself. Learning to say no isn't about being harsh or unkind. It's about honoring your limits and protecting your energy. Saying no can feel empowering because it reinforces the idea that you are in control of your choices and that your time and resources are valuable. Healing from exploitation also involves rebuilding your sense of self-worth. When you've been used, it can leave you feeling depleted, unappreciated, or even unlovable. but your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. It's inherent and unchanging. Take time to reconnect with yourself. Reflect on your strengths, passions, and the qualities that make you unique. Engage in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, and surround yourself with people who uplift and support you. The more you nurture your self-worth, the less likely you are to accept behavior that diminishes it. Breaking the cycle may also mean making difficult decisions about the people in your life. Not everyone will respect your boundaries or support your growth. Some may resist the changes you're making, especially if they've benefited from the old dynamic. It's important to remember that you're not responsible for others' reactions or feelings. Your primary responsibility is to yourself and your well-being. If someone refuses to respect your boundaries or continues to exploit you, it may be necessary to distance yourself or even end the relationship. Letting go of toxic connections is never easy, but it's often necessary for your growth and healing. Lastly, breaking the cycle requires patience and perseverance. Change takes time, and there will likely be setbacks along the way. You might find yourself slipping into old patterns or second-guessing your decisions. That's okay. What matters is that you keep moving forward, learning from each experience and recommitting to yourself. Celebrate your progress no matter how small. Remember that breaking the cycle is not just about changing your relationships, it's about transforming your life. When you break the cycle of exploitation, you reclaim your power and create space for relationships that are built on mutual respect, trust, and love. You teach others how to treat you by showing them how you treat yourself. And most importantly, you step into a life where you are no longer defined by what others take from you, but by the strength, wisdom, and resilience you've gained. This is the ultimate act of self-liberation, and it's a journey worth taking. Healing and rebuilding after experiencing exploitation is a deeply personal and transformative process. It's a journey that requires patience, self-compassion, and the willingness to confront your pain while creating a new foundation for your life. When you've been used, it can leave emotional scars, feelings of betrayal, anger, shame, or self-doubt. These emotions are valid and deserve acknowledgement, but they do not define you. Healing begins with the decision to prioritize yourself, to take the steps necessary to mend your heart, and to rebuild your sense of worth and purpose. One of the first steps in healing is allowing yourself to feel and process your emotions. It's natural to want to suppress or avoid painful feelings, but true healing requires facing them head on. You might feel anger at the person who used you, sadness for what you've lost, or guilt for not recognizing the situation sooner. These emotions can feel overwhelming, but they are an essential part of the healing process. Journaling, talking to a trusted friend, or seeking therapy can provide a safe space to explore and release these feelings. Remember, your emotions are not weaknesses, they are signals that your heart and mind are processing the experience. Forgiveness is another key aspect of healing, though it's often misunderstood. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning the behavior or forgetting what happened. It doesn't require reconciliation with the person who hurt you. Instead, forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment and anger. Holding on to these emotions can keep you tied to the past, preventing you from fully moving forward. Forgiveness is for you, not for the person who wronged you. It's a declaration that you refuse to let their actions continue to control your happiness or dictate your future. Rebuilding your sense of self-worth is a cornerstone of the healing process. Exploitation often leaves you questioning your value or feeling unworthy of love and respect. To counter this, it's important to reconnect with your true self. Spend time reflecting on your strengths, talents, and the qualities that make you unique. Celebrate your accomplishments, no matter how small, and remind yourself that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, it's intrinsic. Surround yourself with positive influences, people who uplift and support you rather than those who drain or diminish you. By nurturing your self-esteem, you create a solid foundation for healthier relationships in the future. Establishing boundaries is another vital part of the rebuilding process. Boundaries are not just about protecting yourself from others, they're also about honoring your own needs and values. Reflect on what you want and deserve in your relationships and practice asserting those boundaries with confidence. This might mean saying no more often, distancing yourself from toxic individuals, or reevaluating what you're willing to tolerate. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to prioritizing others over yourself, but it's a necessary step in reclaiming your power and preventing future exploitation. Healing also involves reimagining and rebuilding your relationships. After experiencing exploitation, it's natural to feel guarded or hesitant to trust again. This is a protective instinct, but it's important not to let fear dictate your future. Start by surrounding yourself with people who demonstrate respect, kindness, and reciprocity. Pay attention to how others make you feel. Do they uplift you or do they leave you feeling drained? Healthy relationships are built on mutual care and respect, and as you heal, you'll become better equipped to recognize and cultivate these connections. Self-care plays a critical role in both healing and rebuilding. Taking care of your physical, emotional, and mental well-being is not just a luxury, it's a necessity. This might mean carving out time for rest and relaxation, pursuing activities that bring you joy, or seeking support through therapy or counseling. Mindfulness practices such as meditation or yoga can also help you reconnect with yourself and find a sense of peace. Prioritize activities that nourish your body, mind, and spirit, and give yourself permission to put your needs first. Healing and rebuilding is also about rediscovering your purpose and passions. When you've been used, it can leave you feeling lost or disconnected from your sense of self. Take this opportunity to explore what truly matters to you. What brings you joy? What goals or dreams have you put on hold? By reconnecting with your passions and pursuing activities that inspire you, you can begin to rebuild a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. This is your chance to create a future that reflects your true values and desires. Finally, be patient with yourself. Healing is not a linear process, it's a journey with ups and downs, progress and setbacks. There may be days when you feel strong and confident, and others when the pain resurfaces. This is normal. What matters is that you keep moving forward, even if the steps are small. Celebrate your progress, honor your resilience, and trust that you have the strength to overcome the challenges you face. As you heal and rebuild, remember that this experience, while painful, does not define you. It is a chapter in your story, not the entire narrative. You have the power to transform this chapter into one of growth, empowerment, and self-discovery. By choosing to heal, you are reclaiming your life and creating a future where you are valued, respected, and loved, not because of what you give to others, but because of who you are. In conclusion, the journey from being used to reclaiming your power is one of the most courageous acts you can undertake. It begins with recognizing your worth and understanding that you deserve relationships built on respect, reciprocity, and authenticity. By identifying the signs of exploitation and delving into its root causes, you gain clarity and self-awareness, empowering you to break free from harmful patterns. Through healing and rebuilding, you not only mend the wounds of the past, but also create a life rooted in strength, purpose, and self-love. This journey is not without its challenges, but every step forward is a victory. Setting boundaries, embracing self-care, and reconnecting with your passions are acts of defiance against exploitation and affirmations of your value. Each choice you make to prioritize yourself and cultivate healthy relationships moves you closer to a life of fulfillment and joy. Remember, you are not defined by the pain you've endured or the ways others have treated you. You are defined by the resilience you've shown, the lessons you've learned, and the powerful steps you are taking toward a brighter future. This is your time to rise, to rewrite your story, and to embrace the life you truly deserve, a life where you are no longer used, but valued, loved, and celebrated for the incredible person you are.